This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Mapper Forward's first on-demand workshop, How to Become a Coffee Consultant. Available now online for you to learn at your own pace with a certificate available upon completion. Click the link in the show notes to access today for just €50. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 3 of our 5-part series where we're talking about cafe and coffee culture across the entire industry, in particularly the UAE. And Ryan has joined us from Specialty Batch. And we're going to start to head into some pretty hot button subjects in this episode. We're going to talk about employer-employee relations. So we started talking about it in the first episode of this series where we were talking about this thing here that's called the Barista Mafia. And it's kind of the worst kept secret in the industry. It was not something that was openly spoken about before we did the episode on the Barista Mafia earlier this year. And you wrote a beautifully eloquent article, Ryan, about the subject that you really took what we spoke about, which was just basically telling people that this thing exists. And you started going deeper about the relationship between employers and employees and the complexity of what makes of the culture that kind of gives birth to something like this. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about what the article was and the essence of it, and let's talk about employer-employee relationships.
Well, thanks, Lee. So yeah, I mean, the whole point of the article was to sort of shine a light back on it, on the topic. Since your last podcast, I think it was in January, if I'm not mistaken.
February.
But since then, I've sort of been thinking about it. I've been, that the content of that article sort of came in paragraphs as I was thinking about it. And I feel like this comes down again to business ethics. Now, in terms of like employer-employee relationships, I feel like that there are certain companies that have a disconnect with their staff, and I think the cafes and the coffee shops and roasters that find it easier to maintain a certain level of ethics are the ones where the owners are actively involved in the day-to-day operations. So yeah, I mean, it's such a tricky subject because the repercussions of this are phenomenal, and I don't think people really think about how this can affect them in the future. I mean, transparency, sustainability is out the door. Forget about all that, because now you've got this culture that doesn't really value quality anymore. It's about chasing that consumption. You are the baristas are working for the roasters, trying to achieve certain KPIs. It's counterintuitive to the objective of the cafe. Now, I mean, how do we even talk about this? Moving forward. What's interesting is after the article, the number of messages I got through Instagram from other roasters, certain roasters I haven't spoken to since 2015, 2016. They were reaching out and saying, thank you so much. It was really nice to sort of see this come out. They were sharing their experiences with instances that they've come across as well. So again, it's something that everyone in the industry knows about, but the public don't know about it. And I feel like if the public were more aware, I mean, consumers have more detailed knowledge about business operations now more than ever. So I feel like if the public are more aware, maybe that will lead to some kind of a change. But it's the first step in like a 20-step program, I think.
It's just to clarify for those who have no idea what we're talking about. Actually, Ryan, why don't you tell people what it is?
The Barista Mafia?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, the evolution of this is not, it's not set in stone. I'm not concrete, sure folks. How it's evolved. I have my suspicions, and other roasters have given me their input. But the Barista Mafia is essentially a group of baristas that come together and say, okay, we'll work with certain roasters because these roasters offer us incentives to use their coffee. So whether it's getting paid on a per kilo rate or reaching certain monthly targets, these baristas working at separate cafes, they conspire to use certain roasters and reap the financial gains out of it. So they are essentially controlling a lot of what the consumers are drinking based on financial gain.
What do you think this does to workplace culture when this exists, and the relationship between employers and employees?
Well, on the one hand, certain employers acknowledge that the Barista Mafia exists, and it's taken their industry back a few steps. Essentially, what could be a profession that has an increasing award pay or salary has now taken a few steps back, where I've had an owner tell me, we're not offering more than 1,200 for a barista. And this is like an experienced barista. 1,200 dirhams a month is, you can't survive on that.
No chance.
He acknowledged that whichever supplier the barista chooses to use, he'll be getting a commission out of. So, how do you argue with that mentality?
Your baristas are no longer working for you. You're not. Your success, they're not conspiring to your success, they're conspiring to the success of your supplier, which is in direct conflict with the reason a business exists.
Exactly. I just don't understand it. And, it's not a model that can go on for long. Essentially, if you're looking at the profitability of a business, if you're looking from the roaster's point of view as well, if I am supplying coffee and I am taking, 10% or 15% off the top end to give to a barista, where's the value in my company? Where's the value in everything that I've built? As a cafe, on the other hand, as well, you've got a staff that are pushing the wastage, pushing the consumption. You are reducing your revenue, essentially closing the gap where your business can actually be profitable. It's limiting, and it's just not a sustainable manner. Now, the next step is other roasters come in and try and compete with this model and say, okay, we'll offer you, this commission plus this KPI plus this plus that. Where does it end?
It's a race to the bottom.
It's a race to the bottom.
Well, folks, I can tell you some of the stories. Like, Ryan, you and I had a conversation last week about where things have gotten to, and every meeting I go to, people want to talk to me about the episode that we released about the Barista Mafia, and they want to update us. And the kinds of stories that we're hearing about the commissions that are being paid. When I first heard about the Barista Mafia a couple of years ago, the commission was somewhere between, and it was, they gave you a price range. It was between 5 and 8%.
It's gone up. Oh yeah.
oh yeah. I'm about to give people the evolution of where it's gone. And then it went to 10%. And then it went to 20%. But folks, the wild shit that I have been shown that baristas are asking for in writing on WhatsApp, they're asking for roasters to buy them a car. They are asking for roasters to pay their rent. This is where it's getting to. And this is, for me, where we're now entered dangerous territory, because this ends up bringing down roasting companies. When this is the level that you have to compete at, now we've got a legitimate problem from both sides. Because people who choose to engage in this behavior, this breaks businesses.
Yeah, 100%.
And I'm worried.
Well, I mean, look at it from a quality point of view as well. But let's take business out of this, or out of the equation. As a roaster, if I'm giving 20% of my revenue to a barista, where's the incentive to maintain a certain level of quality?
Right.
Where's the incentive to maintain a certain level of consistency? If at the end of the day, I know my baristas out there will buy my coffee, will consume my coffee, the quality of coffee that I import, my roasting styles, the time and dedication that I put to quality control, all that goes out the door. There's no need for that anymore because I've got these sales agents working for me. So it's taking the industry a step back in terms of quality as well. So you've got those three already out the door. The quality now is the third thing.
And it doesn't go anywhere good, in my opinion. Like it doesn't seem to be.
It's short term. It's so short term. It's such a short term mentality. It's just and it restricts everyone because you are at the mercy of the roasters that condone it and the baristas that misuse it. I mean, yeah.
And it exists in particular a group of people at the moment in this industry. And like Noah was saying when we first talked about this, what ends up happening is as a new cultural group of people come in, they inherit this system and it just becomes more and more systemic. And then it becomes ingrained in the industry. And then where does it go? There has to be a ceiling where this goes. And I don't know what that is. And I think that your article went a long way to saying, folks, we've got a cultural problem. We've got a problem here that is highlighting the dysfunctional relationship between our staff and our employers. And look, I think that, and perhaps we can talk about this a little bit now. The way that business models are set up here, and you're in a very unique situation from what I see, from everything that I've witnessed. And what I mean by that is you're an owner that's very involved in your business. That is unusual here. Most businesses that exist here, the owner hands off custodianship to a manager who then makes a lot of the decisions. And that's where the open is for the corruption to take place.
True, which is why I said earlier, a lot of the education needs to be conveyed to the owners themselves as well. I think there needs to be a certain code of conduct that business owners need to maintain, and a certain level of knowledge of the industry that they're getting into. Otherwise, it's just irresponsible.
Yeah.
There's the ones who will outlast this sort of mafia and this sort of industry are the ones who are actively involved in their operation and have a certain sense of business ethics that they can abide by, which creates a more positive workplace culture as well. If you have a certain standard, a certain level of ethics, you sort of foster this positive culture among your team. And that's really what sustains your business through the hard times.
Yeah, I hear you. Folks, we're going to talk more about this in the next episode, so join us for the fourth part of this 5-part series. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in, friends. There are 2 ways you can support this podcast. Firstly, become a paid member of our YouTube channel. Secondly, you can join our Patreon for as little as $3 a month. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video before you leave, and check the show notes for more information. Now, this is what you should check out next.